So, welcome to iSmart Champs. Today, another session of electrochemistry, that is part 2. This consists of conductivity of electrolytic solutions and its measurement. This is the part we are going to deal today. So, let's move on to the topic. We'll define what is resistance and how to derive conductivity, and we'll talk about something called Wheatstone bridge measurement and so on. So what is molar conductivity, what is Kohlrausch's law, all these terms will be dealt over here today. So the first topic of discussion goes like this. What is resistance? It is defined as, this is the first part of the topic 2, that is electrochemistry part 2. And what is resistance? This is the starting point. It is defined as a hindrance provided by any conductor for the passage of current. Every substance offers resistance to the flow of electricity to a small or large extent. So it can be varying. We know by now you already know what are conductors, semiconductors and insulators. So there are 3 categories of conductors, and there is another category which is called superconductors. Okay, let's see what are these things, but before that we'll define what is resistance. As per the Ohm's law, you can say resistance is potential difference divided by the current, and it has the SI unit of ohms. So for the Ohm's law, Ohm's law says that the resistance will be constant. So for the constants at a given temperature, the resistance of the material is constant. So R is equal to potential difference divided by current, and it is having as a unit of ohms. And the V is called potential difference or voltage, I is the current. And we have electrical resistance. It depends upon these things, what are the things, and the electrical resistance is proportional to the length of the material and inversely proportional to the area of cross section. That is what it says. So the area of cross section increases, the electrical resistance decreases, and it will increase if you have increase in the length. If you increase the length, electrical resistance increases. So when you combine these things, we get a constant here. R is equal to rho L by A, where rho is called resistivity or specific resistance of the substance. And this resistivity and specific resistance, it depends upon the property of the material. It depends upon the nature of the material. And one more stuff what we have to know is called L by A, which is called cell constant, which is having the units of meter inverse. So this is the idea one. And the inverse of resistance is called conductance, and inverse of resistivity is called conductivity, which we'll see later. Okay, you can note down up to this part. So the next part of the question is, what is conductance? The ease with which the current flows through the conductor is known as conductance. The inverse, it is also the inverse of resistance, and it is designated as per your book. It is G. G is 1 by R. So R expression is rho L by A. So we invert it. So A by L rho or rho L. And this 1 by rho, so here you can write this 1 by rho factor is called K or kappa sometimes. So this kappa refers to conductivity, and the cell constant, we have one expression for the cell constant. The cell constant is L by A, which I told earlier. L by A is cell constant. It has the unit of meter inverse, and it can be measured if you know the conductivity times the resistance of the cell, K times R. So you can see from here, if you combine this expression with this one and just rearrange the things, you will get that. And next is this conductance. The conductance is having the units of ohm inverse or Siemens. So and the conductivity is K is 1 by rho, which is one inverse of resistivity is called conductivity, and or specific resistance. It is a material property, and it has the units of Siemens meter inverse. And it's a very important point. What you have to note is that it always decreases with the decrease in the concentration of weak or strong electrolytes. This is the important point which you have to know. With this, let's move on to another question. Hopefully you understood. This is a very basic definitions of conductivity, and later we will move on to measurement of conductivity and the other stuff. You can note it. So next topic of discussion, I would say, what is electrical conductance? What is electrical conductance through a metal? How it happens? That is how we can frame out a question. It is due to the movement of electrons and termed as electronic conductance. So for metals it happens. It depends upon the nature and structure of the metal, and the number of valence electrons and temperature. These are the points which you have to remember, like what are the factors on which the electrical conductance through a metal will, what are the factors on which the electrical conductance of a metal depends upon. And with the increase in temperature, it will decrease. This is very, very important. And during the conduction of the current, the composition of the metallic conductor remains unchanged. Very, very important point. During the conduction of current, the composition of a metallic conductor remains unchanged. Whereas if you go to the electrolytic or ionic conductance, what is electrolytic or ionic conductance? If we consider like pure water is, if you take pure water is a very bad conductor. But when you add something like potassium chloride or sodium chloride kind of salts within that, what happens is they will furnish their ions inside the solution, and hence the conductance of electricity will happen because of the transport of the ions. So what is electrolytic or ionic conductance? The conductance of electricity by the ions which are present in the solutions is called electrolytic or ionic conductance, because we will mix these things like KCl or NaCl inside the solution. So when such salts are dissolved in solution, they furnish their ions. So they are also called electrolytes. So these electrolytes, when they are mixed with water, they furnish the ions, and the conductivity will happen because of these ions. And ionic conductance, the conductivity of electrolytic solutions depends upon nature of electrolyte, size of ions produced, solution, nature of solvent, viscosity and concentration of electrolyte, as well as temperature. With increase, we have to note that with increase in the temperature, the conductivity of electrolytic solutions will also increase. This point I will discuss in the later question. Okay, let's move on to another one. So let's see the next question. How temperature and passage of direct current will affect the ionic conductivity. So this is the part what we are talking about. Ionic conductivity increases with the increase in the temperature, and with the passage of direct current through the ionic solution over a prolonged period, it can lead to change in the composition due to electrochemical reactions. If the composition of the changes because of the electrochemical reactions, the ionic conductivity can vary. So these are the ideas what you can know. So let's move on to another question. What are the problems do we face while measuring the conductivity of ionic solutions using DC? And how to resolve these problems? This is the question. So what are the issues we'll say? I said by passing the DC, it changes the composition of electrolyte by because some electrochemical reactions will happen during that time. So let us see the answer. The resistance of a conductor can be measured by using a Wheatstone bridge. This is how we actually do the resistance. But by passing the DC, it changes the composition of the solution. This problem. And secondly, the solution cannot be connected to the bridge. So for the Wheatstone bridge, we cannot connect the solution directly because it's a liquid. So how to resolve the problems? The first problem can be resolved by using AC current. That is if we cannot use DC, the alternate one is the alternate current. So that's how you can resolve the first problem. The second problem can be resolved by specifically designed vessel, which is called conductivity cell, which has two platinum electrodes coated with the platinum black. So there is something called a conductivity cell. What is a conductivity cell? It's a kind of you can say it's a vessel. In that vessel, there the next part of the question will come, how the conductivity cell looks like, what are the two designs possible for the conductivity cell. So in that question we'll see, so that in that the cell constant L by A, it is fixed, and we will take some KCl solution sort of thing, and then we'll measure the cell constant of that, and then we'll fix that cell, a particular cell where the cell constant is known. If we know that cell constant, we can measure the conductivity of the solution by using the balanced Wheatstone bridge principle. So how it is, how we will do that, let's see in the next questions. So let's see the next question. What are the two designs of the conductivity cells possible? So these are the designs what is given as per your book. So this is how the cell looks like. It's like this kind of cylindrical kind of arrangement, and here you can see the two electrodes. They are platinized platinum electrode, both the ends, and these are the connecting wires what we have, and the electrolyte is present over here. And in this kind of arrangement, this is a different arrangement, and the electrolyte is taken here like this. It's like a rectangular, and this is cylindrical type. And in a rectangular, okay, this is also a kind of cylindrical type, and these two are, the leads are taken from the same side, the leads are taken from the opposites, something like this, so you can think of. And this electrolyte is taken inside this, and these are platinized platinum electrodes, and the connecting wires and the electrolyte. Hopefully this is clear. So how these designs of the conductivity cells are useful, where this is used. Actually, the cell constant has to be measured out of it. So the area of the cross section of these electrodes is A. We know that while making this cells, and they are separated by a distance of L, these two electrodes. That is the distance between these two electrodes. What you have to think is the distance between the two electrodes, that is L, and the electrodes will have a cross sectional area A, and separated by, thus the resistance of the column containing electrolytic solution between the electrodes is given by R is equal to rho L by A. We know this formula, R is equal to rho times L by A. This we know very well. So we know L, that is the distance between the electrodes, and the area of cross section, we know this. Here in this case, this is the distance between the electrodes, that is L, and the electrodes area of cross section, that we know. Then we can find R is equal to rho L by A. So by this we can know the resistance of the cell. So these are the designs possible. So let's move on to another question. So let's see the next one, how the conductivity measurement is done. So conductivity measurements are done by using the principle of Wheatstone bridge. So here in this Wheatstone bridge, one of the resistors we choose R2 is R2 is a place where we attach the conductivity cell. That is the cell resistance what we need to know. And R4 and R3 are known resistances, and R1 is a variable resistor. So where you can vary the resistance. So here I have written in detail R2, R3, R2 is the resistance of the cell, R3, R4 are the known resistances, R1 is the variable resistance. And here O is the source of AC power, and it is also called an oscillator. So this is the conductivity cell, it's connected. So before doing that, what we need is to find the conductivity. This is the equation what we have. Conductivity is cell constant divided by R. So in order to measure cell constant, what we do is, for measuring the cell constant of the cell, the resistance of the cell is measured with KCl solution. And for KCl, the conductivity is known at different temperatures as well as concentrations. And the conductivity of KCl solution is known at all temperatures and concentrations, maximum. So the KCl solution, it is fixed. So because the conductivity is fixed, we can derive the cell constant out of it. So like what I discussed earlier. So one can derive cell constant by using KCl first. And after that, we connect the cell with we connect the conductivity cell here with the solution where for which we need to measure the conductivity. That solution is filled over here in the cell.
And now the variable resistance R1 is adjusted until no current passes through the circuit. R1 is adjusted in such a way that no current passes through the circuit. And during that time, when no current passes or minimum current passes, no sound is heard from the earphone, or very less noise will come from the earphone. When the point where we keep changing the resistance R1, the point where we get the minimum beep sound from the earphone is the point we take, or no sound from the earphone, the point where the resistance R1 we will adjust in such a way that the earphone will not beep. So until to that point we'll adjust, and we would say that the Wheatstone bridge is balanced in that case. So Wheatstone bridge is balanced when we say is that when the potential difference of this point and this point are equal. That means the no current flows if the potential difference between this point and this point is the same. So we would say the bridge is balanced. So if the current is not flowing in the circuit, that the microphone will stop beeping. So that's the idea what we have. So when no current passes through the circuit, we can say R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. And whereas R2 we can measure from rearranging this stuff, R1 R4 divided by R3, where R2 is the required resistance of the cell. So we got it. From that we can calculate the conductivity by using the equation cell constant divided by R, where R is our R2 what we found. So that's how we can measure the conductivity of the solutions by using the Wheatstone bridge principle. So let's move on to another question. Let's see the next question. On what factors the conductivity of a solution depends upon? The conductivity of a solution depends upon the charge of the ions, size of the ions, and concentration of the ions, and the ease with which the ions move in the solution under a potential gradient. Which also means that the same electrolyte can show different conductivity at different temperatures and in different solvents. So these are the factors on which the conductivity of the solution depends upon. Of course, the viscosity, everything will come into the picture. Okay, let's move on to another one. So let's see the next question. Very important. What is molar conductivity? Molar conductivity is the conductance of electrolyte solution kept between the electrodes of a conductivity cell at unit distance, but having the area of cross section large enough to accommodate sufficient volume of the solution that contains 1 mole of electrolyte. So this is the idea. So you have to take the area of cross section very large enough so that you have to contain the electrolyte, which is 1 mole of electrolyte should contain it in the solution, and then the electrodes should be large enough to accommodate almost the entire solution. That's the idea what we have. So here it is defined, the equations what we give is lambda m, it's called lambda m, which is kappa by C, which is the conductivity divided by concentration. In terms of molarity, you can write K into 1000 divided by m in terms of molarity. M is the molarity of the electrolyte solution. If the concentration is expressed in mole per meter cube, then the conductivity is ohm inverse centimeter inverse or Simon meter inverse. The concentration is mole per meter cube, and you have the lambda m values will be ohm inverse meter square mole inverse. This is how you get. If you just plug in the units, you will get it. And that's also Simon meter square mole inverse. So ohm inverse is nothing but Simon. The other way, another one is that this conversion what you have to know. If the concentration is expressed in molarity, the 1000 factor will come on the top, and m is the molarity. So 1 Simon meter square mole inverse is nothing but 10 power 4 Simon centimeter square mole inverse. So this conversion factor you have to remember while doing. It's just a simple 1 meter is 100 centimeter. If you plug in that, you will get it very easily. You can get it. So the thing is that this conversion factor you have to remember, because mostly we express in these units the conductivity and molar conductivity. The molar conductivity is expressed mostly in these units. And the conductivity is normally expressed not in Simon meter inverse, it is Simon centimeter inverse in general they will be using. So if at all while doing the problems or something, this is the preferred, you have to remember this conversion factor. So with that we'll move on to another question right now. So in this question, what I did is this is a problem. This type of questions are coming now and then in the board examinations especially. So it's a very important to understand how to solve these kind of questions. So this particular problem is asked in All India 2012. The electrical resistance of a column of 0.05 molar NaOH solution of diameter 1 centimeter and length is 50 centimeter is 5.55 into 10 cube ohm. Calculate the resistivity, conductivity and molar conductivity. This kind of questions are coming now and then very often in the board examination. So it's very important. Please give a practice. I have given the calculations here. So area, first we know the diameter, half of the diameter is the radius. From this we can calculate the area by using the formula pi r square. So first we'll calculate the area, which is the cross sectional area. So area happens to be 3.14, that is pi into 1 by 2 whole square, that which is the radius. Radius is 1/2, and then it's, because it is centimeter, we get centimeter square. So it is about 0.785 centimeter square. This is how we calculated area. Next, we can calculate the conductivity from the resistivity values. How we can connect it. Conductivity is inverse of resistivity. Resistivity is Ra by L. Inverse of that is L by Ra. So conductivity directly we can measure. We can calculate by using this formula. So the length of the cell is 50 centimeters, which is given, and R value is this much, 5.55 into 10 cube ohm. And what we calculated the cross sectional area is this 0.785 centimeter square. Plugging the values, what we get is conductivity 1.148 into 10 power minus 2 Simon centimeter inverse ohm inverse centimeter inverse. Sorry, Simon centimeter inverse ohm inverse. So that's the, or ohm inverse centimeters. You can write ohm inverse centimeter inverse, Simon centimeter inverse or ohm inverse centimeter inverse. So this is what you get the conductivity. Either you can write Simon centimeter inverse or ohm inverse centimeters, both the things, either of the things you can write. And the molar conductivity is given by lambda m is equal to K into 1000 divided by m. That is, just plug in the values, what you get is Simon centimeter square mole inverse, 229.6 Simon centimeter square mole inverse. Normally, as I said, the values of conductivity and molar conductivity are represented in centimeter, normally Simon like this, only in centimeters, not in meters. That's what I wish to tell. So the conductivity units and molar conductivity units, you have to remember, the conductivity is Simon centimeter inverse or ohm inverse centimeter inverse, or you have ohm inverse centimeter inverse. Either of these units you can use. And molar conductivity, you see, Simon centimeter square. This is centimeter inverse, this is centimeter square, mole inverse. So there is a variation between these two. Please note it. It's very, very important. The units are different for these two. So please note it. So let's move on to another question. There was a question, what are the units of conductivity and molar conductivity, like that also. So for the units of conductivity is Simon centimeter inverse or ohm inverse centimeter inverse. Molar conductivity is Simon centimeter square mole inverse. This is how you had to answer that questions. Okay, let's move on to another one. So let's move on to the next question. Very, very important this question. How conductivity and molar conductivity vary with concentration. Conductivity always decreases with decrease in the concentration or dilution for both strong as well as weak electrolytes. As the number of ions that carry the current in unit volume of the solution always decreases with dilution. This is the reason. And we have conductance G is equal to K into A by L. If A is equal to L equal to 1, we can say G is equal to K or kappa, whatever you want to call. So molar conductivity is given by the relation Ka by L. If I multiply with L on numerator and denominator, I mean Ka by L is the actual formula. and if I multiply with L on the numerator and denominator, we have A into L is V divided by L square. If at all the value of L is 1, you can say this is equal to K times V. So the molar conductivity increases with decrease in the concentration. Why it is so? It's a very fundamental thing, very important. So molar conductivity increases with decrease in the concentration upon dilution. Decrease in the concentration refers to dilution. This is because the total volume of the solution containing 1 mole of the electrolyte also increases. Here you can see the molar conductivity is equal to K times V. So if the volume increases, they are directly proportional. If the volume increases upon dilution, because we add more amount of solvent into that, so the dilution increases the volume. So since the volume increases, the molar conductivity also increases. So let's move on to another question. How lambda m molar conductivity varies with the concentration for strong electrolytes. That's the question. And the strong electrolytes, we know they can dissociate completely at all concentrations. For strong electrolytes, lambda m increases slowly with dilution. This is represented by Debye-Huckel-Onsager equation. So the question can be like, what is Debye-Huckel-Onsager equation? That can be also a question for you in the examination. So lambda m is given by lambda m naught minus A root C. So this is how where A is some constant and lambda m naught is the molar conductivity at infinite dilution, or you can say limiting molar conductivity. So here the plot of lambda m versus root C, it's a straight line with slope minus A. I represented it here. Lambda m versus root C will be like a straight line with a negative slope. Negative slope lines will look like this, and slope of minus A, and the intercept is lambda m naught, which is the molar conductivity at infinite dilution, which is called limiting molar conductivity also. The value of A depends upon the type of electrolyte. And how the type of electrolyte will decide. See, NaCl, if you consider, it will dissociate into Na plus and Cl minus ions. So the charges on each ions is 1,1. So it is 1,1 type electrolyte. If you consider CaCl2, it will dissociate as Ca2 plus and Cl minus. So the charge on the cation is 2 and the charge on the anion is 1. So it's called 2,1 type electrolyte. If you consider magnesium sulfate, it's a 2,2 type electrolyte. 2,2 type refers to magnesium when it dissociates, magnesium sulfate when it dissociates as Mg2 plus and sulfate 2 minus. The charge on the cation is 2 and the anion is also 2. So that's called 2,2 type electrolytes. So these are the type of electrolytes. So for all the electrolytes of a particular type, we have the same value of A. So the value of A will be same for all that. If you take all types of 1,1 electrolytes, the value of A will be the same. If you take 2,1 type electrolytes, the value of A will be same for all those particular kind of electrolytes. You can think of like NaCl, KCl. If you consider, both will have the same value of A. And in the case of magnesium sulfate, like calcium sulfate, if you consider magnesium sulfate and calcium sulfate, both are 2,2 type. If you consider like CaCl2 or barium chloride, BaCl2 type, they are 2,1 type. So in that case, you will see the value of A will be the same for those kind of things like CaCl2 and barium chloride sort of stuff. So if you consider the same type of electrolyte, the value of A remains the same. And this is how the plot looks like, lambda m versus C. And you see this curve cuts the y-axis at lambda m naught. This curve cuts the y-axis at lambda m naught, which is called limiting molar conductivity at infinite dilution. So infinite dilution refers to the concentration is 0. You can see the concentration is 0. Concentration when it goes to 0, when you dilute infinitely, when you have a large amount of solvent you have mixed into the solution, then almost the concentration approaches 0. When the concentration approaches 0, this is the situation of concentration when it approaches 0. Practically it's not possible, but you dilute in such a way that the concentration almost it's like 0. So to that much level when you dilute, then whatever the molar conductivity you obtain during that time, it's called molar conductivity at infinite dilution. It's also called limiting molar conductivity. So let's move on to another question. So let's see the next one. What are the observations made by Kohlrausch, scientist? So
these observations led to Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions, which is very important. What are his observations? It can be a question for the examinations. Kohlrausch examined that limiting molar conductivity values, lambda and naught values for a number of strong electrolytes, and found that a pair of electrolytes with the same anion but differ only in the cation, the difference of lambda m values is constant. So the cation is varied, that means potassium and sodium, the cations are varied, but the anion is same. You can check this, anion is the same, that is chloride. So the difference in the molar conductivities of potassium and sodium, so potassium plus ion and sodium plus ion, that's what comes into the picture. And the Cl minus ions is getting, the limiting molar conductivity of Cl minus is getting cancelled out. If you consider this pair, whether again you see the potassium and sodium are the ions which are different, but the anion is the same. And now you take the anion is same, that is I minus, and the potassium and sodium, they are different. So if you see, there is a trend here. If you forget this one, like Cl is not there. If you consider the situation where Cl is not there and bromine is not there, iodine is not there, consider this situation scenario. So when that happens, you see always this lambda m K plus minus lambda m Na plus is always constant irrespective of what is the anion present over there. So that is about 23.4 Simon centimeter square mole inverse. In the same way, for the same cation, if you consider the lambda m naught value of KBr minus lambda m naught value of KCl, you see this one, this potassium is constant. You see the Br minus Cl minus, always we consider the Br minus and Cl minus, and which is the common cation. Let's forget the common cation. So you see this is like the difference of Br minus and Cl minus, it's something like that. So that always remains the same irrespective of what is cation over there. So that is about 1.8 ohm inverse centimeter square mole inverse. These observations led to the Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions. So you can remove what is the common anion or common cation, and it always gives the difference between the limiting molar conductivity of here in the case of potassium plus and sodium plus. You can take any pair of salts with the common anion goes up. The limiting molar conductivity of common anion is not affecting the difference in the molar conductivities. That's what he found. So this led to Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions. So what is Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions? That's we'll see in the next question. So let's see the next question. What is Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions? And earlier question I discussed what are the observations of Kohlrausch and what are the Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions. It states that the limiting molar conductivities of an electrolyte is the sum of individual contributions of the cation and anion of the electrolyte. So in the case of NaCl, individual is just the sum of the individual molar conductivities of limiting molar conductivities. In fact, limiting molar conductivity is a situation where you dilute the solution heavily. That means when you dilute the solution such that almost the concentration tends to zero. In that conditions, the limiting molar that is called limiting molar conductivity. Sum of the limiting molar conductivities of sodium plus and that of Cl minus will give the limiting molar conductivity of NaCl. So that is a basic idea. If an electrolyte produces V plus cations and V minus anions, V plus is a number. If it's suppose it produces V plus is the number of cations and V minus is number of anions, then the general formula for the molar conductivity at infinite dilution is given by V plus lambda plus naught and V minus lambda minus naught. So this lambda naught is equal to V plus lambda plus naught and V minus lambda minus naught. So this is how you can measure the infinite molar conductivity at infinite dilution for strong electrolytes using Kohlrausch's law. So in the case of, I'll give an example. In the case of MgCl2, consider. So it produces Mg plus and 2Cl minus ions, right? So that way, if I had to write the molar conductivity of MgCl2 at infinite dilution, then it refers to
V plus, number of cations is 1 only, so that lambda naught of Mg2 plus, it's only one cation it produces. It produces 2 anions, so V minus value is 2 here. You can substitute 2 here, so 2 lambda naught minus, that minus refers to Cl minus, okay. So this is how one can generate, one can find the limiting molar conductivity at infinite dilutions. If I know the values, these two values of lambda Mg2, lambda naught of Mg2 plus and lambda naught of Cl minus, if I know these two, I can find the infinite molar conductivity at infinite dilution for the case of MgCl2. So that's the basic idea. So let's move on to another question. What are the applications of Kohlrausch's law? So the molar conductivities of the weak electrolytes at infinite dilution can be calculated by using Kohlrausch's law. The degree of dissociation of the weak electrolytes like acetic acid, ACOH refers to acetic acid, at a given concentration can be calculated. And knowing the degree of dissociation alpha, the dissociation constant K of a weak electrolytes like acetic acid, we can calculate by using the degree of dissociation we can obtain from the Kohlrausch's law. And how it is done, we'll see later in the next questions. At a given concentration can be calculated. And the solubility of sparingly soluble salts can be calculated as we have the equation of solubility. Solubility is nothing but, suppose you take the salts like silver chloride or silver bromide, this kind of salts which are, they are not that good soluble and they are not highly ionic in nature, which are more of covalent in nature kind of salts. They are not very soluble in the solvents like water, I mean polar solvents like water. So in such situations, how to calculate the solubility? Solubility is measured in moles per liter, which refers to how many moles of our salt can be dissolved in the given 1 liter of the solution. And the solubility is given by the equation kappa into 1000 divided by lambda m naught. So this is how one can calculate the solubility. If we know the conductivity and the molar conductivity at infinite dilutions, using this equation one can calculate the solubility of the sparing soluble salts. So with this ideas, let's move on to another question. So let's move on to next question. For some space constraint, I am writing the question here. Why Kohlrausch's law is used for determining lambda m naught for the case of weak electrolytes? So what happens in the case of weak electrolyte? What is a weak electrolyte first of all? The electrolytes which do not ionize completely in aqueous solutions as well as in molten state are called weak electrolytes. That's the idea. Like they are like H2CO3 and CaCOH, acetic acid. We know that very well. Weak electrolytes like acetic acid are not completely dissociated at all concentrations. Lambda m naught value increases steeply in the case of weak electrolytes upon dilution, especially at low concentrations. So how to read this curve, lambda m versus root C? I tell you, you have to read the curve towards this way. This is the way of reading the curve. So when you increase the dilution, it's like you fix the concentration initially and you dilute it more, the concentration starts reducing to 0. So this is the 0 refers to the case where it's infinite dilution. So this curve, when you start reading, this is the case of strong electrolytes. This curve, the straight line is for the case of strong electrolytes from Debye-Huckel-Onsacker equation. So from that you can extrapolate in the case of strong electrolytes to get the value of lambda m naught. That's okay for the strong electrolytes. But in the case of weak electrolytes, what happens when you go like this? When you start decreasing the concentration, the curve goes very steep. That's what it refers to. It goes steep with respect to y-axis. It goes with respect to steep with respect to y-axis and goes parallel to y-axis. So the value increases steeply in the case of electrolytes upon dilution, especially at very low concentration, and it goes steeply with respect to y-axis. The graph of lambda m versus root C becomes parallel to y-axis. You observe this point. Parallel to y-axis for the case of weak electrolytes at low concentrations. At low concentration, it goes parallel. So you cannot extrapolate the graph at infinite dilutions in order to determine the value of lambda m naught. So you cannot extrapolate this curve to get the accurate values. So the reason, and there is one more thing, when you do the infinite dilution, where that means that almost the concentration goes to 0, electrolyte dissociates, that's okay, and completely, and the alpha degree of dissociation is 1. But at such a low concentration, the conductivity of the solution is so low that it cannot be measured accurately. That is a problem with the weak electrolytes. So in order to overcome that, what we do is we use Kohlrausch's law to determine the lambda m naught for the case of weak electrolytes. So that's the idea here. So what happens in the case of weak electrolytes? You have to read the curve backwards. You see, when you are diluting, the concentration reduces, so the root C value also reduces. So this way you have to read the curve. So this curve goes parallel to that of y-axis. So the reason you cannot extrapolate this curve in order to determine lambda m naught in the case like the strong electrolytes like KCl. So that's the idea behind, and let's move on to another question. This is more or less the last question. After this I will solve a couple of problems, and then the next video will be moving on to electrolysis and Faraday's laws of electrolysis and other stuff. So what is this question? This question is about how do we calculate the degree of dissociation, especially for weak electrolytes. So for weak electrolytes, how do we calculate the degree of dissociation using this conductivity method? So how do we do that? The ratio of, this is the definition itself, the ratio of molar conductivity at a specific concentration C to the molar conductivity at infinite dilution, or the limiting molar conductivity, is known as degree of dissociation. So you measure the molar conductivity at certain concentration. After that you dilute the solution infinitely, and you heavily dilute the solution to infinite dilution so that the concentration approaches 0, and then again you measure the conductivity at that point and take a ratio of that. That is nothing but the alpha, which is the degree of dissociation. For the weak electrolytes, we know that K is given by C alpha square divided, this is called dissociation constant, C alpha square divided by 1 minus alpha. Just substitute the value of alpha, which is lambda m by lambda m naught. So when you plug in that C into lambda m whole square divided by lambda m naught whole square into 1 minus lambda m by lambda m naught. So when you rearrange the step, what you get is C into lambda m square divided by lambda m naught minus lambda m naught minus lambda m. Please understand that lambda m naught is greater than that of lambda m. See, upon dilution, the lambda m values, the molar conductivity values, keeps increasing upon dilution. That is the idea you need to remember, and that's how this value is always positive. So that's the idea here, and we'll solve a couple of problems, and that will be the end of the video. So let's see the next question. This is a problem. Calculate the limiting molar conductivity of acetic acid. So this is what the job is, and what they have given is limiting molar conductivity of HCl 426 Simon centimeter square mole inverse, and again NaCl they have given 126 Simon centimeter square mole inverse, and CaCO2Na 91 Simon centimeter square mole inverse. So these three are the values they have given us, and we need to calculate the molar conductivity of acetic acid. So to start with, we know the molar conductivity of acetic acid. If it dissociates, of course it dissociates as H plus and CaCO minus ions. So here for this, what I did is I have added the limiting molar conductivity of Cl minus as well as Na plus. I added and I subtracted the same thing. So I added Cl minus and subtracted Cl minus. So that does not create any difference in the value. And similarly, in the case of Na plus, I added and subtracted limited molar conductivity of Na plus and subtracted limited molar conductivity of Na plus. Now what I did was, if I couple these two, it gives the limiting molar conductivity of HCl directly. So that I have written here, and limiting molar conductivity of CaCO2Na, if I couple these two parts, limiting molar conductivity of CaCO minus CaCO2Na, and this one, if you couple, what you get is limiting molar conductivity of NaCl. So we just plugged in the values, 426 plus 91 minus 126, which is 391 Simon centimeter square mole inverse. So that is the limiting molar conductivity of CaCO2. This is how one can calculate using Kohlrausch's law. So let's move on to another question. So we are coming to the end of the lecture. This is the last question of the video. And this completes the part about the conductivity of the cells and measurement. And the next part will be about the Faraday's laws of electrolysis and others. And please do subscribe the channel, and the subscription buttons are available over here at the bottom. And let's move on to the question. Conductivity of 0.00241 molar acetic acid solution is 7.896 into 10 power minus 5 7 centimeter inverse. Calculate its molar conductivity in the solution. If lambda m naught of acetic acid, they have given it as lambda m naught as 390.5 Simon centimeter square mole inverse, what would be the dissociation constant? So this is asked in Delhi 2008 and All India 2008. So how to calculate? The lambda m at any concentration is given by K into 1000 divided by molarity. So let's plug in the values. K value, they have given it as 7.896 in 10 power minus 5 Simon centimeter inverse. That's the conductivity they have given it, and 1000 divided by the molarity, they have given it as, you can see the molarity 0.00241. So we plugged in the values, what we get is 32.76 Simon centimeter square mole inverse. And we can calculate degree of dissociation. Alpha is given by lambda m at any concentration, at any given concentration, divided by lambda m naught, which is the degree, which is the molar conductivity at infinite dilution. Molar conductivity at any concentration divided by molar conductivity at infinite dilution. Molar conductivity at infinite dilution, they have given it as 390.5. So we plugged in the value. The value of lambda c, we got 32.76 divided by 390.5, which is 8.4 in 10 power minus 2, which is 0.084. So that's the value of alpha, and alpha doesn't carry any units because it's a ratio. And now dissociation constant Ka is given by C alpha square divided by 1 minus alpha. So from this we can calculate the dissociation constant C alpha square divided by 1 minus alpha. That is given by, so what is the concentration? 0.00241 molar into 0.084 whole square divided by 1 minus 0.084. So the dissociation constant Ka is given by 1.86 into 10 power minus 5 molar. So hence the video, that's the last question of the video. Please do subscribe the channel, subscription button is here. And please post the comments on the questions what you like and what you want to know. And the next topic will be on Faraday's laws of electrolysis and few others. So thanks for watching the video. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.